What's up, everybody? This is Whiskey in the Six. I'm Rob, doing a Knob Creek rundown here. Starting over here with the 9-year-old, which is 50%. This is their standard release, between $30 and $50 Canadian, depending on where you buy it. At the LCBO, it's about 50 bucks. You can get it for less elsewhere. In the States, you're looking at about 30 bucks. The 120 proof, also 9 years old. This one's $62 at the LCBO, less in other provinces. A great buy, in my opinion. I'll tell you why in just a sec. And then this one over here on my left is the 15-year-old. I recently bought a bottle of this, but this one's borrowed from my buddy Peter White. This is $200 at the LCBO, about $150 in the US, maybe a little bit less than that. So not cheap compared to the two 9-year-olds. It's right, but I'm gonna explain a little bit about this one as well. 50% for the 9-year-old. The composition of these is 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. Okay. All right, so definitely your standard rye forward bourbon, but I like the ABV on this. I gotta say, I don't like my ABV less than 50% when it comes to bourbon. I feel like you lose way too much flavor. Some nice burnt caramel notes. Maybe a hint of like a cherry kind of note in there. Also maybe the smallest hint of like a banana vanilla pudding. On the palate, solid sweetness on the palate. Nice barrel char notes on there as well. I like my bourbons a little bit oakier. So 9 years old, I think, is probably in and around the age where you start to get some decent oak on your bourbon. This one I'm getting a little bit nice burnt caramel, like I said. You get some like candy corn kind of sweetness. I don't really get the cherry on the palate as much, but there is something fruity. Maybe it's that banana, vanilla banana, and maybe a pudding, something of that sort. Overall, honestly, for about 50 bucks, which is cheap for LCBO standards, that's a great buy in my opinion. Honestly, really, really tasty. Gonna come back with a mark after I've tasted and nosed these two over here. Moving over to the 120 proof. So, to be honest, on the nose, I feel like the 50 stands out a little bit more, but I'm not getting a lot of alcohol on this nose. I do get burnt oak. It's not like, it doesn't sting the nostrils or anything like that. I'm just not getting as many notes as I am getting from the standard 50% version. See, on the standard 50% version, I just got a little bit of like a dill kind of note. Yeah, a little bit of burnt caramel. I'm not getting a whole lot. On the palate, yeah, the palate's where this one really shines. You still get that charred oak, caramel, burnt caramel kind of note. The viscosity is definitely higher than the 50% version. I don't think either of these are chill filtered. Definitely your more like darker kind of baked down, like baked goods kind of notes when I do get nuances on the nose. Yeah, it's opening up a little bit more. maybe like a banana bread kind of note. I don't get this as being more rye heavy or rye notes per se as I did on the 50% version. Yeah, so the nose, probably a little bit more going on for the regular 50% version, but the palate, way more going on for the 120 proof. Okay, gonna move over here to the 15-year-old. Yeah, lots going on here. So I get that cherry again that I started to get a little bit with the 9-year-old. It's not super oaky on the nose, despite being 15 years old. Now, almost $150 difference between these two. So $140 difference between these two at the LCBO. Probably less in the US, but obviously you have to take into consideration exchange and stuff like that as well. And I believe that this is 150 or around 120 to 150 in the US, the 15-year-old. So not far off in the exchange. Yeah, so a little bit more oak heavy on the palate for sure. Not as sweet as these two, more oak forward, a little bit more drying as well, which is pretty obvious when it comes to something a little bit more oaked. You do get the age difference for sure. The nose is nice. I like the nose here. Yeah, it's definitely good. I know that this is batch specific as far as quality goes. So this is release number KC002 and it's DSP KY230. So I'm sure that means something to those who are looking for specific releases. I do know that the people I trust most with bourbon, one being Jason from the Mash and Drum, said that some batches he's had of this have been fantastic and other batches not as good. So take that with a grain of salt, but I'm going to mark these now, starting over here with the 9-year-old at 50%. So I like the nose here. I think as an entry-level bourbon, compared to what's on the shelf, at around the same price range, around the same ABV, you're looking at, you know, Buffalo Trace, which is 45%, but around $5 or so less than this one. You have your Rare Breed, which is a little bit more expensive than this one, probably more comparable to the 120. In that range, I think this is one of the best buys you can find. The Four Roses at 50% is also very good, the single barrel. But this one is really good for what you're getting. 50%, about $50. And a solid overall bourbon. I'm gonna give this one an 84. I think that's pretty good. I really like it. I would buy it again at that price. It's one of those ones where you really can't go wrong having it on your bar at all times. I like it, like I said, and it's 9 years old. That's more than you can say for a lot of the bourbons that are released around that price range, around that ABV. I would think that that's probably 2 or 3 years older than most of the stuff relative to this or in comparison to this. So great buy, I think, 84. And I'm probably being a bit harsh, to be honest with you, because it is quality stuff in my opinion, and it's versatile. At that price range, you don't mind mixing this in Manhattan or mixing it in a old fashioned, right? 120 proof right here. Like I said, this is about $62 at the LCBO. Nose has opened up a lot more. Just got a hit of peanut brittle. A nice note of peanut brittle and caramel there. Palate's better too. Sweeter. It's probably gonna just take a little bit longer in the glass to open up because of the ABV. But really good. Again, you're getting 9-year-old bourbon here, sometimes more. I know Knob Creek plays some tricks and sometimes adds older whiskey in their releases. This is a single barrel, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, single barrel reserve. So each one is probably 9 years old, but you never know. They could just throw the 9-year-old label on it. They've done that in the past. This is really good. I really like this. For the price, 62 bucks, 9-year-old bourbon. You're not really getting anything comparable to this. I don't know how old Rare Breed is, Wild Turkey. As far as price range and quality goes, that's probably your closest comparable. But I think this one might edge it out a little bit, in my opinion. Maybe not. I would have to do a head-to-head to know for sure. 62 bucks, I'd buy that again all day. I'd probably just skip to this one instead of grabbing this one because of the ABV, and then play with it myself instead of having, you know, the company play with the water amount in the bottle. For the extra 10 bucks or 12 bucks, whatever it is, I think I'd rather do that myself. This one's gonna be an 87 for me. I really like it. I think it's really, really good. I'm definitely gonna have this on my bar when this one's finished. I have a second one already lined up for this. Really enjoyed it, bought a second one right away. So 87 for me. I know that's a high score, especially for a bourbon, but I think at that price range, it's really hard to find quality, especially in Ontario at the LCBO. So 87 for this one. Now, 200 bucks for this one at the LCBO. I'm gonna give it one more taste and then I'm gonna give this one a mark. So I get a little bit of that peanut brittle, but it's almost as if it's covered in dark chocolate, super dark chocolate. And that's coming from the extra oak influence on this one here. It's got some nice sweetness actually. And yeah, the peanut brittle carries through on the palate. It definitely drinks older. The finish is actually fairly long. 50%, 200 bucks, 15-year-old bourbon. I mean, I like that they're pricing it in a range that won't make this become the next ridiculous bottle to find. It seems like whenever the retail price of a bourbon is maybe a little too high, it keeps the secondary scavengers away, which I like, because I'd rather pay $200 retail for this than it being $100 retail and going on the secondary market for $400 or $500 in a couple of weeks. And for whatever reason, the formula seems to be if the bourbon is cheap, the secondary is way higher. If the bourbon goes up in price, the bourbon's too much on retail, the secondary is non-existent. So I actually like what they did with this. I think that that was the right thing to do. I'd rather give the company 200 bucks, or at least the LCBO 200 bucks, than the secondary market 5, right? So I'm gonna give this one an 87, 88, all right? It's somewhere in between that. It probably, if I had more time with this, this is probably my third dram out of this bottle. This is Peter White's bottle, like I said. I'll have a little bit more time to get to know it when I do grab my own bottle. My buddy Mike Brisebois actually picked that up for me in Ottawa. I like that. I think it's really good. I'm gonna give it one more sip just to confirm that either 87 or 88. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna lean towards the 88. It keeps getting better with every sip. That last sip there was just fantastic. It might even go higher, to be honest with you. And if it does, we'll do this all over again in a whiskey rant. But for now, great bottle. So just to recap, This is an 84, 87, 88. All really good whiskeys. I would buy all of these and I would recommend all of these. Really happy with these bottles. I'm really happy with what Knob Creek has decided to do because of what's happening in the market. So Knob Creek seems to be one of those ones that are always consistently well priced and reasonable, and you're getting good quality for what you get. I would say Wild Turkey is probably up there as well. So really good stuff. Hope you like this video, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you really like the video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. You can check me out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can support this channel on Patreon. Cheers.